Julius Caesar. It's 75 BC, and a Roman ship is crossing the Aegean Sea. On board is a 25-year-old Roman nobleman named Julius Caesar. Not yet a general, not yet a politician, not yet anything. Just a young man from a respected, but not particularly powerful family, heading to the island of Rhodes to study rhetoric. Then the pirates show up. A Cilician pirate vessel pulls alongside and takes everyone hostage, Caesar included. They drag him aboard and send a ransom note to the nearby city of Miletus, demanding 20 talents of silver for his release, roughly $600,000 in today's money. Caesar reads the ransom note over the pirate captain's shoulder and laughs. He tells them 20 talents is an insult, that they clearly have no idea who they're dealing with, and that they should demand 50. The pirates, confused but encouraged by the higher number, agree. While his companions scramble to collect the ransom, Caesar spends 38 days as a prisoner on the pirate ship, and instead of cowering, he just takes over. He joins their games. He writes poetry and reads it aloud and calls them illiterate savages when they don't appreciate it. He sleeps whenever he wants, and when they make noise, he sends word they need to keep it down because he's trying to rest. At one point, he tells them directly that once he's released, he's going to come back, capture every single one of them, and have them crucified. The pirates laughed. Nobody talks to pirates like that, certainly not a prisoner. The ransom arrived. Caesar walks off the ship a free man. The pirates watch him go, still laughing. He wasn't laughing. Within days, Caesar raised a small fleet from Miletus, entirely on his own authority, no military office, no legal right to command soldiers. He sailed back to the pirates' island, caught them before they could scatter, hauled every single one of them to the nearby city of Pergamum, and demanded they be crucified immediately. The Roman governor stalled. "These things take time," he said. "There are processes." Caesar didn't wait. He went back to the prison himself and had every single pirate crucified on the beach. As a small mercy, because he'd spent 38 days with them and didn't completely hate them, he had their throats cut first, so they wouldn't suffer too long on the crosses. That was Julius Caesar at 25. He returned to Rome and spent the next 2 decades climbing through a republic that was rotting from the inside. The courts were corrupt. Violence, assassinations, mob rule, private armies had become the normal language of Roman politics. Most people either accepted this system or were destroyed by it. Caesar decided to become more corrupt than the corruption itself. He spent money he didn't have, built alliances with the most powerful men in Rome, maneuvered himself into command of the armies in Gaul, was now France and Belgium, that the Senate thought was a backwater posting to keep him busy and far from Rome. They were handing him an army. Over 8 years, Caesar fought through all of Gaul, crossed the Rhine into Germany just to make a point, and twice invaded Britain because no Roman had ever done it, and he wanted to be the first. By the end, he had fought over 50 battles, killed an estimated 1 million people, and made himself the most famous and most dangerous man in the Roman world. The Senate panicked and ordered him to disband his army and return as a private citizen. His alliances told him to comply. His enemies were too powerful. This was not a fight he could win. On January 10, 49 BC, Caesar stood on the northern bank of the Rubicon River, the legal boundary beyond which no Roman general was permitted to bring his army. Crossing it with troops meant an act of treason. It meant civil war. It meant everything. He stood there for a long time. Then he looked at his men and said, "The die is cast," and walked across. The civil war lasted 4 years, and Caesar won it all. He returned to Rome as dictator, one man, total power, no checks. He was also making enemies faster than he was making history. The Senate watched a man dismantling the republic they had spent their lives protecting. And 23 of them decided to do it together, what none of them had the courage to do alone. March 15, 44 BC, the Ides of March. Caesar arrived at the theater of Pompey for a Senate meeting despite every warning. His wife had dreamed of his death. A soothsayer had warned him. His own instincts told him something was wrong. He went anyway, because Julius Caesar did not do things out of fear.
The senators surrounded him under the pretense of a petition. One grabbed his toga, another struck first, a glancing blow to the neck. Caesar grabbed the man's arm. Then they all moved at once. 23 senators, 23 stab wounds. Caesar stumbled, pulled his toga over his face so he would not be seen falling, and collapsed at the base of a statue of Pompey, the man he had defeated in civil war, whose theater he was standing in, whose statue now watched him die. He was 55 years old. Within 2 years, every single one of his assassins was dead. The republic they had killed him to protect never recovered. Rome became an empire. They killed him to stop him. Instead, they made him eternal.
Alexander the Great. It's 336 BC, and a 20-year-old has just watched his father get assassinated at a wedding. Philip II of Macedon, the man who built the most powerful army in the Greek world, who had spent 20 years preparing an invasion of the Persian Empire, was stabbed to death by one of his own bodyguards in the middle of his own daughter's wedding celebration. Whether the bodyguard acted alone or was part of a conspiracy, possibly involving Alexander's mother, possibly involving Alexander himself, nobody has ever been able to prove. Ancient sources disagree. Modern historians disagree. The truth died with the people in that room. What is not disputed is what Alexander did next. Within days, he had executed every potential rival to the throne, a cousin, several princes, anyone whose existence represented an alternative. Then he turned to the Greek city-states that had immediately begun celebrating Philip's death and testing the new young king's resolve. Thebes rebelled. Alexander marched his army south in 2 weeks, a speed the Thebans didn't think was possible, and destroyed the city so completely that almost nothing was left standing. 6,000 killed, 30,000 sold into slavery, the city razed to the ground. Every other Greek city that had been considering rebellion decided immediately that they would not be rebelling. Alexander was 20 years old. What followed over the next 13 years is the most extraordinary military campaign in human history, and military historians still cannot fully explain it. Alexander took 50,000 men east and did not stop. He crossed into Persia, the largest empire the world had ever seen, and began dismantling it battle by battle. At Issus in 333 BC, he defeated the Persian king Darius III, despite being outnumbered 3-1. Darius fled the battlefield so completely he left his own mother, wife, and daughters behind. Alexander treated them with full royal honors, not because he was soft, but because he understood how you treat a defeated king's family tells every other king exactly what kind of conqueror you are. He defeated Darius a second time at Gaugamela in 331 BC. This time, Darius fled so desperately that his own nobles murdered him before Alexander could capture him. Alexander found the body on the road and gave him a royal funeral. He was king of Persia. He was 25. He kept going. East through Afghanistan and Pakistan, fighting guerrilla warfare in mountain terrain no conventional army had ever successfully conquered. His men had been marching and fighting for 7 years. They were 3,000 miles from home, and Alexander kept finding new worlds to take. His men finally broke at the Iphasis River. They refused to go further. For the first and only time in Alexander's life, he faced something he could not fight or outthink, the exhaustion of the people who loved him most. He wept. He shut himself in his tent for 3 days and refused to speak to anyone. Then he came out and agreed to turn back. He never recovered from it. The march back through the Gedrosian desert killed tens of thousands through heat and thirst. His closest friends were dying one by one. Then Hephaestion, his companion since childhood, the person many ancient sources suggest he loved more than anyone in the world, died of fever in Babylon in 324 BC. Alexander's grief was so total, he had the attending physician crucified. He held Hephaestion's body for 2 days before his generals could convince him to let go. He planned a funeral that would have cost billions in today's money. Then Alexander himself fell ill in Babylon in June 323 BC. Fever,
progressive weakness. Within 12 days he couldn't speak. His soldiers, the men who had followed him across the known world and back, filed past his bed one by one to say goodbye. He acknowledged each of them with his eyes because he no longer had the strength to lift his hand. He died on June 11th, 323 BC. He was 32 years old. He had never lost a battle. When asked who should inherit his empire, he reportedly said, "To the strongest." His generals tore it apart within a generation, but what Alexander had done to the world could not be undone. Greek became the common language of the entire Eastern Mediterranean for 3 centuries. The New Testament was written in Greek because of Alexander. Early Christianity spread through a Greek-speaking world Alexander created. Every word you use that ends in ology or begins with phil or astro or geo comes from a world this man built before he turned 32. He wept because there were no more worlds to conquer. Then the fever took him, and there were no more worlds at all.